I think anime has gotten too good. Hear me out. Shows like JJK, Frieren, and Solo Leveling look so incredible, are so popular, and take up so much of the anime community's conversation that I think people have started to forget that these series are kinda outliers. Not all shows are going to look this good. In fact, most look pretty rough. And as for Sakamoto Days, okay, before it was even announced, people were eager to see what an anime adaptation of the Sakamoto Days manga would look like because it has some of the most insanely drawn, exciting action at least I have ever seen from a weekly manga. Every single panel has such a strong sense of motion that should translate perfectly into animation. And then, the anime's trailer dropped. Oh wow, this actually looks pretty good. It looked terrible, according to a very large and very loud section of the manga's fanbase. And they weren't gonna let you forget it either, because when the anime opening came out, before the show even released, everyone took it upon themselves to point out every awkward proportion, every bit of weird lighting, and every little issue just so you knew how bad the show would look, and how there was no way you'd actually be able to enjoy the show. And then, I finally got to watch it for myself, and I gotta say, I really don't get the hate. Okay, I get that it's not perfect. And I know when you see the bonkers action in the manga, you kinda expect the anime to look perfect, but in my opinion, the show still looks pretty good. And I would argue that the action is still some of the best in recent anime, just based off of the choreography and creativity alone. But to break down those, I first want to give some context for the fights. Taro Sakamoto was a legendary hitman. He was a cold-blooded, calculated killer that completed every mission with ease. Oh, and by the way, what you're seeing right now, almost entirely anime original, and not at all a PowerPoint, or stale if you ask me. It's sick, and it's a perfect demonstration of why Sakamoto was revered by all hitmen. Until one day, he met a girl and his heart grew 3 sizes. He quit killing for her, got married, had kids, and got a dad bod. And now he works happily as an owner of a convenience store, completely disconnected from his previous life as an assassin. And then Shin comes to make the plot start. Shin, who can read minds, used to work with Sakamoto as an assassin, and has been tasked with making Sakamoto return to being a hitman, because he didn't put in his 2 weeks notice. Sakamoto declines, and Shin walks away to his car having failed and acting disappointed in what Sakamoto has become. And then he starts totally fangirling. Okay. Did I mention that this show's really funny? He then gets a call from his boss asking if he'd convinced Sakamoto to return, which, of course, he hadn't. So then the boss reminds him that if you don't put in a 2 weeks notice, you either return or you die. Some pretty standard stuff. So Shin begrudgingly accepts the order, and the next day shows up ready to take Sakamoto out. He walks right past Sakamoto's family and into the convenience store where Sakamoto's sucking on a piece of candy. Shin quickly pulls out his pistol and fires, but at just the same moment, Sakamoto spits out the piece of candy, which intercepts the bullet and changes its trajectory just enough to make it miss him. And I'd like to point out that even in those couple seconds, already so much has been done to elevate the panels in the manga. Like, this beautifully animated shot of the candy shattering into a million pieces was entirely absent in the manga, and it certainly doesn't look lazy. And the fight's not even over yet, as Sakamoto takes full advantage of his surroundings, launching ice pops and custard, slingshotting candy, and kicking Shin through the entire shop to knock him out. And that's when I realized Sakamoto doesn't have a dad bod. This is a father figure. When Shin comes to, he's confused. There's the smell of freshly prepared food, and the sound of Sakamoto's wife and daughter greeting him as he awakens to find himself lying in a bed, wounds already bandaged up. From there, he's brought into the kitchen for family dinner, dibs, and everyone's being suspiciously kind to him. He just tried to assassinate Sakamoto. Could this be a trick? Could the food be poisoned? Nah, the only thing this food's laced with is love. Turns out Mrs. Sakamoto is a great cook, go figure. And this meal makes Shin realize that Sakamoto left his job to protect his family because that's what's brought him the most joy in life. And at that, Shin leaves empty-handed, but is welcome to come back anytime. However, he is not welcome back at the crime syndicate. So when he returns, fighting starts happening, and Shin's a little bit outnumbered. Shots are being fired left and right. Pew, pew. He does his best to hold his own, using his mind-reading abilities to react to the assassin's next moves, and taking out a bunch of guys when they least expect it. Eventually, though, he gets down to his last mag and makes one final run for it. He's able to get a couple good shots in, but then he's quickly surrounded with nowhere to go. He's cornered, and Sakamoto jumps in just in time to save the day. See, Sakamoto had actually bugged Shin when he knocked him out and knew what was going on the whole time. So, he waited for the perfect dramatic moment to bring out his stash of hundreds of deadly weapons to pick out his taser and save the day just in time. Sakamoto proceeds to take out the entire syndicate with ease, stopping bullets with literal chopsticks and pencils and dealing blows in the chillest, most creative ways possible. And it was then that I think the assassins finally realized they probably should have just let him go. But as the cherry on top, after knocking out all the baddies, he offers Shin a job at the store with paid overtime. Now that's just the first episode, and the fights just continue to get better from there, as the show's action scenes are really as good as their set pieces allow, because of how well Yuto Suzuki utilizes the surroundings during battles. My favorite of which comes in episode 3 when the family goes to a theme park just after a giant bounty was placed on Sakamoto's head. The family gets on a roller coaster, including the new girl Lu Xiaoteng, with Shin and her sitting in the back to scout for any possible hitmen in front of them. Purple's sus, so right as they're entering the first loop-de-loop, he shoots out his shoulder bar, and just as they're reaching the peak, he lets go and begins free-falling through the air, landing perfectly on top of the hitman. It was cool when I read it in the manga, and it might be even cooler here. And this might not even be the most genius part of the fight, but it's a perfect example of just how well the show uses set pieces and subtleties to elevate the action beyond just animation. Because if I'm being honest, the coaster does look a little too roller coaster tycoon-y, but that's really the only use of CGI I'd seen in the show. I mean, it might have been other places, but I didn't notice. And like I said, overall, I think the show looks good. Sure, it's nothing exceptional, and it definitely doesn't always look as cool as the manga, which, by the way, was literally praised by JJK author Gege Akutami as being better than his work. But I think people have blown that way out of proportion, from the show not looking as great as it deserves to saying that it looks like Blue Lock Season 2, which it doesn't. They just used up the entire budget animating the jiggle physics for Sakamoto's chin. And like I started the video by saying, I think us anime fans have gotten a little spoiled with just how good the most popular shows look now. And while I'm not going to pretend that I don't wish the show looked that good, I will say that the smaller focus on action, in a way, has gotten me to enjoy the calmer slice of life moments of the show a lot more than I did while I was reading the manga. Because with that, I just wanted to get to the next fight as quickly as possible because solo leveling has ruined my brain. And the characters have probably become my favorite part of the show, and seeing their connection grow throughout the series has really been enjoyable. And every time we get a flashback for Mr. and Mrs. Sakamoto is pure cinema. And now that I think about it, this might be the first time a popular shonen anime is hated on for being carried by its source material. As a whole, while I don't think the criticism this show gets is completely for no reason, I do think it's extremely exaggerated. And I think it's still one of my favorites this season, even if it wasn't for the reasons I was expecting. So if you haven't read or watched Sakamoto, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and YouTube's sure that you'll enjoy the video that's on the screen right now. See y'all next time.